Okay, this meeting is being live streamed. We're good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order Wednesday, January 19th at 6:34 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Nathan? Kathy?
Here.
Gerardo?
Sorry, that was it. That was a here. Sorry,
Okay.
that was.
I saw your mouth move, so I guessed. Gerardo?
Here.
Jean?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Deborah?
Here.
And Rebecca?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Is everybody. Now our next order is public comment. And John, do we read that out or?
Yes, I will read it out loud. I sent it out to each trustee with my director's report today, but I will read it in a public forum. January 18, 2022, to the Waukegan Public Library Board of Trustees. The Waukegan Historical Society thanks you for your careful consideration of the future of the Ray Bradbury collection. I write today on behalf of the Waukegan Historical Society to again formally request that the Ray Bradbury collection be transferred to the Waukegan Historical Society in its entirety for the benefit of the Waukegan community. In the past, the Waukegan Public Library has transferred ownership to the Waukegan Historical Society. The Waukegan Historical Society now proudly makes the United States EPA documents as well as resources on the city of Waukegan available to the public. The Waukegan Historical Society pledges to do the same should you transfer ownership of the Ray Bradbury collection to our care. Ray Bradbury called the Carnegie Library and the books within it his lovers and had written about his desire to see his collection housed in the Carnegie. Unfortunately, Bradbury passed away before the Waukegan Historical Society and the Waukegan Park District were able to restore the building, but we know he would love the idea of this collection coming to the Carnegie Library building. On November 17, the Waukegan Historical Society provided a letter to the Board of Trustees where Ray Bradbury shared these sentiments today. I'm attaching a letter that I hope the trustees have received personally from the Ray Bradbury Literary Works, LLC, a trust that Ray Bradbury formed, which holds the rights to Ray Bradbury's intellectual property. The letter clearly supports our request for the transfer of ownership to be turned over to the Waukegan Historical Society so that it may be displayed inside the Carnegie Library building. The letter is co-signed by two of Ray Bradbury's daughters, Susan B. Nixon and Alexandra Bradbury. We sincerely hope that you consider the wishes they make known in this letter on their father's behalf. The Waukegan Historical Society believes it's fitting that the Ray Bradbury collection would be coming home to the Carnegie Library building to be exhibited in a planned Ray Bradbury room. The Society and our partners for more than 40 years, the Waukegan Park District, are working closely with Harbo Architects, one of the leading preservation architectural firms in the world. Our plans are to recreate the children's reading room that inspired Ray Bradbury in so many ways. The Waukegan Historical Society and Waukegan Park Districts are investing $12 million raised from private sources and grants on the restoration of the Carnegie Library. The Waukegan Historical Society has engaged Lucy Creative, an award-winning exhibit design firm, to help plan and design the Ray Bradbury room. The centerpiece of the room will be the Ray Bradbury collection. Alongside the books will be dynamic multimedia exhibits that will inspire the next generation in the same way the Carnegie Library and books of the Ray Bradbury collection inspired the great science fiction author. Our purpose of these plans is to make the Ray Bradbury collection available to the public so that it may inspire future generations. We request that you transfer ownership of the Ray Bradbury collection to the Waukegan Historical Society to help make the telling of Ray Bradbury's story a reality. The Ray Bradbury collection will be kept intact without the sale of any part of the collection. It will be professionally preserved following proper collections and archival standards. In addition to this letter, the Waukegan Historical Society wishes to share a draft of a deed of transfer that we would use should the Waukegan Public Library Board of Trustees choose to transfer ownership to the Waukegan Historical Society. Ensuring this, the Waukegan Historical Society makes it clear that in the unlikely circumstance that our organization ceases to exist, the Waukegan Public Library would be the first right of refusal to the Ray Bradbury collection. In other words, the collection would be returned to the Waukegan Public Library. The Waukegan Historical Society has provided this in response to some of the concerns raised at the December Board of Trustees meeting. Historic building that captured Ray Bradbury's imagination is the ideal home for the Ray Bradbury collection. We thank you for your consideration and request that you, in your full authority as trustee, vote on January 19th, 2022 in favor of entrusting the Waukegan Historical Society with the Ray Bradbury collection. Sincerely, Josh Bill, President, Waukegan Historical Society. That is all.
Okay, thank you, John. Up next, we have the agenda for tonight. Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve the agenda for the Waukegan Public Library Board of Trustees meeting for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022.
I second the motion.
Okay, Gerardo. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Next we have to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting of December 15th, 2021.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? Any abstain? Okay. So,
Hey, Rob, can I interject here?
yeah.
Since you are operating the meeting under the executive order and then amendment to the Open Meetings Act, which during the declared emergency, you can do it all video or virtual. One of the requirements is every motion has to be approved by a roll call vote.
Oh, okay.
Whereas approving the agenda and the minutes, if you want to just do real quickly a roll call vote to approve both of those motions, that'll suffice. And then as we go through each item on the agenda, each motion, we need to do the roll call vote.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight and approve the minutes from our previous meeting?
Now do a roll call vote as to those. You've already done the motions.
Okay, cool. So just a roll call. Okay.
Yep.
Nathan,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Jean,
Hear me?
now I do. Did you-
Yes.
Okay. Larry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Okay. Fantastic. Now we can move on to the first thing on the reports is the auditor report with Martha. Trotter.
Thank you for having me on tonight. I'm Martha Trotter, the audit manager for the library's financial statement audit, here to present to you the audit report for the fiscal year ended April 30th of 2021. I'll try to be brief. A couple items, just one, my voice is going out, but also there's quite a bit of information in the reports that you have hopefully had a chance to review. I just want to highlight the key items for you to focus your attentions on and any significant changes from prior years that you might notice. So first of all, just a little background on the audit process. We began our audit procedures with preliminary fieldwork back in June. We were actually able to be on site for the preliminary fieldwork portion. And then we completed our final fieldwork where the bulk of our audit testing procedures remotely in August, as well as some additional requirements the library had for the fiscal year. Some single audit or grant related testing, which was completed in October. We have prepared the annual financial report for you. And within the annual financial report, pages 1 and 2 of the report is where you'll find the independent auditor's report. And that's probably the first place many people look when they pull open a financial statement to find the opinion that was issued. So just kind of a breakdown of what's included in the independent auditor's report. On the first page, you'll find discussion of the management's responsibilities in relation to the audit, as well as the auditor's responsibilities related to the audit. On the second page of the independent auditor's report is where you'll find the opinion, and probably the highlight of what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight is we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the library's financial statements. Unmodified opinion being the highest level, or considered a clean opinion. That's the highest level of opinion that we can issue, which means that the financial statements are presented fairly and can be relied upon based on the testing that we performed. One thing you'll notice, and this will be something to call out that you wouldn't notice in prior year reports, there's an emphasis of matter paragraph in the opinion, and it discusses specifically the foundation is no longer presented as a component unit of the library. So in prior years, the library foundation, based on the activities that ran through it, was considered to be material and became a component unit of the library. However, based on the level of activity and the anticipated future level of activity of the foundation, it is no longer deemed material to the library. So that component unit presentation went away in the current year. Within the annual financial report, the first set of financial statements are the government-wide financial statements, the statement of net position and the statement of activities. And these statements present the library's activities on a full accrual basis of accounting. So this is not something that you typically see on a month-to-month basis when you're reviewing the budget versus actual financial reports that are presented to you. These full accrual financial statements include long-term assets and long-term liabilities, such as the library's capital assets, any long-term debt items. In the instance of the fiscal year 2021 financial statements, net pension asset related to IMRF, and OPEB liability related to the other post-employment benefit plan that is included on the full accrual basis financial statements. The general fund financials are presented as part of the basic financial statements as well. Those are presented on a modified accrual basis of accounting. So that is more typical to what you're used to seeing, budget versus actual for the general fund, comparative to what you see on a month-to-month basis. Of course, taking into account any accruals that existed at the end at April 30th, 2021. So any receivables, any payables that would come due within the year. There's a good amount of information in the footnotes to the financial statements that take up a good portion of the annual financial report. There are some tables which provide information on the library's long-term debt activity, capital asset activity, the library's IMRF allocation, as well as the library's OPEB plan. There are a couple pages of required supplementary information where you can find historical data on the library's IMRF and OPEB plan. And then the back of the report, the last couple pages, is a detailed budget versus actual schedule for the general fund, the detail of revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year. In addition to the annual financial report, a requirement for the library for the fiscal year, as I mentioned, due to the level of grant activity, the library received about $1 million of COVID-19 coronavirus relief funds. And that money was spent during the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2021, which triggered a requirement to perform additional single audit testing to comply with uniform grant guidelines, and resulted in a separate single audit report being issued, where we focused specifically on testing of the grant and related compliance requirements. And there were no items that came to our attention during our testing, which would need to be disclosed as findings or question costs related to the coronavirus relief funds that the library received. In addition to that, nothing came to our attention during our audit procedures that rose to the level of a material weakness or significant deficiency that it would be deemed necessary to be disclosed within the board communication. So we've received, we always ask for a great deal of information as part of our audit procedures, especially when there's additional requirements, as there were this year related to the grant testing. So there's a great amount of information that we asked for. We had an abundance of help from this library staff in getting the information that was needed. Always very helpful, always very responsive, giving us all the information that was required, and we were able to complete our audit procedures without any issues. Any questions for me?
I don't think so. Doesn't look like anybody's speaking up.
And I'm always available to answer any questions. If anyone needs to reach out to me, you can touch base with John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the acting executive director's report with John.
I will gloss over some of the email that I sent today with a request that any trustee that has any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me at your convenience. I will schedule a meeting to discuss these things, or take a call day and night whenever you need to discuss any questions you might have about library business. I also have been sending these to your personal email addresses, just because I don't know how frequently everybody's able to check your email, the library email, but I do want to encourage, I will be mentioning that in my IT portion. So library is open 10 to 7 Monday through Friday, Saturdays and Sundays 10 to 3. We have limited group programming or gatherings in the building, and are in the process of shifting everything virtual until further notice, likely until the spring. As far as finance, nothing out of the ordinary to report. Thank you to Martha from Sikich for her explanation of our audit to the board. The draft budget has been sent to the Finance Committee with detail, and a copy will be provided for your approval prior to the board meeting in February. We certainly welcome your feedback. As far as personnel, we promoted 4 part-time staff to full-time positions to address departmental staffing needs: 2 reference assistants, Abby and Sam, a customer service clerk 1, Jean, and Alicia in our maintenance department, effective on February 1st. Chuck decided to retire after over a decade at the library in the maintenance department, passing the torch on to Francisco, our new maintenance manager. Congratulations to all those who have changed positions or roles, or the amount of work that they're doing for the library. We offered a position full-time to the reference librarian. They bailed the day before they were supposed to start, so we made another offer, and I believe that offer has been accepted. The patron services model has assured that we haven't had any shutdown due to our library service despite illnesses following the holidays. So one of the nice things that staff have commented on is that they never have to worry if somebody calls in sick. They always have enough coverage. More detail will be forthcoming in the February meeting regarding staffing and safety in the library. As far as maintenance, we're settling into winter, looking at a pretty pricey boiler repair, so stay tuned on that one. The building by and large is equipment from the 1960s. That building was built in 1963. So the time has come to consider carefully much of our building infrastructure. And again, when things break, they get more and more expensive as the building gets older and harder to replace. We've got a lot of custom, let's put it that way. And Francisco's done an outstanding job of keeping the building warm and everybody safe and happy inside the building. As far as IT, our new Vega catalog, the library catalog, is live to the public on all public terminals and on our website. The old catalog is still available for those who are more familiar with the old way of looking stuff up. I would like to request to set up training in February for trustees on library communication methods. So please contact me with your availability and we'll set something up with Isaac and IT to help you get set up. One of the other requests is that Rob and I have discussed that we're looking to get some technology like iPads for the trustees so everybody has the methods and the means and a central way to communicate and to keep track of all these digital files that are coming your way. So stay tuned for more information about that. I did submit the 2022 annual library certification through Rails and the State Library. There were no significant changes from the year past. We look forward to the 2020 census data being released, maybe even was released today, which is going to help us understand Waukegan and the communities that we serve. Also learned that the OMA and FOIA training portal at the Attorney General's office of the state of Illinois is back up. So we'll be sharing more information with trustees about training and completing the Open Meetings Act and FOIA training for the your roles as trustees. I do have one request, so please look at Saturdays in February so we can provide additional retraining. As we discussed at our last retreat, doing a quarterly training for trustees. Please review your calendars and let me know what Saturdays might work best for you. I would like to work with Brian, the development committee chair, and develop kind of a workshop tailored to what you'd like to learn more about in terms of being a trustee. I will also be sending along some things like webinars to trustees to keep an eye. So keep an eye on your library email for opportunities to learn. The second request of the board is that when there is a committee meeting, please communicate with Susan and myself in advance of the committee meeting to assure we'll have a quorum and the topics that we'll be discussing will be posted properly and in adherence to Open Meetings Act rules. Thank you in advance for helping to improve our efficiency for our meetings. Thanks for pivoting to the virtual. I did include a little bit of information about our friends who've done an outstanding job pivoting to selling things on Amazon and having fewer in-person sales. They've been very generous to contributing to library events and programming, including our summer program and our summer concert series. And they've recently made a move to the main floor where the sorter used to be housed. So thank you to the friends and thank you to the foundation for meeting and raising funds for our new library van. They recently celebrated a couple of local companies who donated portions of their sales to the library charitably. The Strip and Culture and Nightshade and Dark. They had a very nice event at Nightshades and Darks to celebrate the foundation's relationship and to again get some more business their way. Thank you to those groups and to our foundation. They're dedicated and looking to grow. So stay tuned for big things from this group in the future. And with that, I respectfully submit my director's report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. And next we have Gail with the Acting Assistant Director's report.
Good evening, everyone. There is a PDF of what I am going to talk about tonight. I thought I would give you a little bit more details in terms of our transition that we're making now as we move back our programming to virtual so that you have an idea of really what's going on. There it is. So as you know, we've transitioned anything that requires a small group or large group meeting. And so these are some of the programs that are currently under transition. All of our story times will be recorded and released through social media and our bilingual story times. Our United Way learning camps and sensational 6s and 7s will continue on a bi-weekly basis, and they will be virtual so people can register and participate. Maritza's cursive writing workshop, which is extremely popular, will transition to a virtual event. And our teen and adult crafting programs have gone back virtual. We are working to take the drop-in talk time with the social workers to make that accessible for our patrons in a virtual format. Everything could not be or cannot be transitioned to virtual. So we have some things that are in the process of being rescheduled. We work really hard in educational literacy services to develop partnerships. And as you know, everyone's not quite ready to come back into the library as we ease out of the pandemic. As we try to ease out of the pandemic. So we had scheduled the beginning of some on-site 6-week series, or I should say off-site, on-site at some partner venues. So right now with the VA and with the Reverde House, we are putting that on hold until the pandemic subsides a bit more. We are rescheduling our Martin Luther King Day of Service. Right now, we're looking at President's Day. That was creating hygiene kits for distribution with grade schoolers and teens. We have a host of people that are interested in volunteering. So we're still trying to work out a way to do that next month, but in a very safe way. And our partner program, Khan Academy, which focuses on 3rd through 8th grade children working on math, is being postponed at this time. There are some programs that we've actually have put on hold with the Waukegan School District, our Bus to Us program. We are putting that on hold because we're not having large groups in the building, but also we were looking at how could we do something with the school district, but right now they're not having volunteers in the building. So we're still working on a way to continue to serve the first grade population. Our diabetic empowerment education program and the new Ask the Doctor program are temporarily on hold with our partners until we can have more people back in the building. What continues by appointment is all of our adult education services. So they can be virtual or on site because it's one-on-one in safe environments, or it can be virtual. And that is up to both the tutor and the learner. Our notary is only by appointment and on site only. So we're continuing to serve. And of course, those are grant funded programs. So we're working with our grant funders to help them understand what the surge means to our programs and how we'll continue those programs. We have not made any change so far to the mobile learning lab. That's a fall time picture. It's actually in the building in the children's department. And the Rosalind Franklin Care Coach, which does wellness checks and vaccinations, will continue to come to the building. So no change in that service. So we are advising the public to look at our calendar for all of the updated information that lets them know if something is postponed or if it's virtual. And we are stepping up the amount of communications that we do both through social media and through email with our patrons, keeping them informed. So we all did agree to move forward with Illinois Libraries Presents, and we have 2 virtual programs. The way that it's working right now is all of the libraries that have signed up, which is well over 100, all have equal access to programming right now, and there is no $25 cost for it being virtual. So we have one next week and one already scheduled in February. And wanted to give you a quick update on some of our community engagement and partnership activity. This past Saturday, we did go ahead in partnership with the NAACP and have a vaccination clinic, which turned out to be one of the larger vaccine, we call them pop-ups in the community. We served 90 adults and children. We had little 5 and 6-year-olds and big 15 and 16-year-olds, as well as adults getting first and second shots, as well as boosters. So people will come back in February to get their second shot or a booster. But we consider that to be a very successful program. And the IDPH that we worked with, the medical providers from the state, were extremely impressed with the library and the library staff. We continue to participate with the Lake County Nature Network and the Alliance for Human Services, which is really important in terms of partnership and getting information out into the community about the library, as well as opportunities to share resources. And we continue to work with the Comunitara Latina, I'm sorry, Comunitara Association de Latina and the AACPG in terms of mitigating COVID. And last, I wanted to do a quick preview on, some new signage. Check us out in 2022 is kind of our saying. You'll see that on various things in the upcoming weeks, but this is what our new banner will look like in the front of the building. And we will also have some new banners in the back of the building, identifying the library and the different services that we provide. And last but not least, we are in the process of changing our Black History Month programming to virtual as our partners allow. Sometimes contracts don't allow some of these programs to be virtual, and we will determine what to do. But I do invite you, as we did with Latino Heritage Month, to please participate in some of the Black History Month activities. Most of the people and presenters are local or Chicago Metro or Lake County local presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Welcome.
Up next, we have Finance Committee with Larry. Larry, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now
All
we
right.
can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
That's high tech. Yes, we had a meeting tonight of our finance committee at 5:45, 5:47, whatever, and we had a quorum and we discussed 3 documents. The first we discussed is and it should be in our packet, in our board packet for this evening. We discussed the Waukegan Public Library summary of actual versus budgeted results for the 8-month ending on December 31st, 2021. And we looked at this in detail. Everything appeared to be appropriate. Anna, are you still here, our business manager, or are you departed now?
No, I'm here.
Oh, very good. Yes, well, as I was explaining, everything appeared to be within norm, to be expected. We did have a large payment based on our bond principal, which was a capital expense. No, debt service, as I understand. No, I'm sorry, debt service. But other than that, and that was to be expected, as I understand, happens once a year. Is that right, Anna, or is it quarterly? I can't remember now.
The principal payment we pay once a year, and
That's
interest
right.
we pay
We pay that quarterly, right?
the principal we pay once a year, but we pay interest twice a year.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay.
But we're done this fiscal year. That's why the expenditure budget uses versus actual under debt service is 100%.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Again, it's something that's anticipated, that happens every year. So again, everything appeared normal on that, to be anticipated. We then next looked at the monthly board check detail for December of 2021. And we reviewed all this in detail, and I had a few questions here and there, but everything appeared to be appropriate and within reason. So we had nothing further to review on that as our committee. One more document. We also had received a proposed 2023 proposed budget for the Waukegan Public Library. It's a 4-page document, and the Finance Committee looked at that in great detail, and it appeared to be within means. It appeared to be appropriate. However, we're going to individually meet with John and our business manager, Anna, to just look at a little more detail, ask any questions we may have. And then this will come back before our Finance Committee next month at our meeting. And then we will have it go to the board for the full board's review on the budget for 2023. So with that in mind, we do have one matter here that does need to have the board's approval, and that is the Waukegan Public Library monthly board check detail for December 2021. I will say that, again, we discussed this in detail. We had a motion and it got seconded and it approved that we bring this to you with our recommendation for approval. So it is now up to the board to review and decide what to do here with the monthly board check detail for December 2021. I would need a motion to accept the monthly board check detail for December 2021. Is there a
I'll
motion?
motion to approve the December disbursements.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I second.
And who was the seconder?
Kathy.
Oh, very good, Kathy. Thank you. Okay, Brian is our secretary. Could you do our roll call?
Sure.
Thank you.
Kathy,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Jean, I think that was an aye. You came off.
Aye.
Got it. Okay. Deborah,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I for myself. So it passes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, up next we have Governance Committee. Jean?
The Governance Committee met on the 5th of January. And we went over the collection and development policy. We made a few minor changes. One being that we changed the numeration on it. The other is under section 3, part B. We added digital to include all the stuff that's digital in the library. And we added to the last sentence on that paragraph, we added, I can't even read my own reading. Okay, where did it go? After the word languages, hey, part B. I'm sorry, I cannot read my handwriting.
Sorry, Jean, I'm looking for my notes to find what we had.
Languages, and we added subject matter. That's what it was. In that sentence there, we added the word subject matter. And then we came down to E. And we made a change in how that reads to get rid of just the it originally said link in and interlibrary loan, and we put an actual sentence in there to read as it does there. And then we came to reconsideration of library materials. There was a lot of renumbering there. And in DEF, I'm sorry.
It's at 7.
Is that at 7, the executive director? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, 6 and then 7. Yes, we
Okay.
changed.
We made a change to that paragraph there to read that the director would also provide an explanation of why he denied the request. And then we broke that into another sentence to say that the board, it would be brought to the board in writing for a final decision. And that was all we did on the collection. Does anybody have anything that I might have missed?
Just to clarify with that last one on 7, it's if the patron appeals the request, then that appeal
Right.
would go to the board.
No one has any questions. Can we get a motion on that?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Been moved by Nathan and seconded by, is that Kathy?
Yes.
Kathy, to accept the changes made.
Accept the changes, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Motion to accept the changes as recommended by the committee.
Right. Can we get roll call, please, Secretary?
Yeah, Nathan,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Jean,
Yes.
Larry,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and myself is yes. So it's approved.
Thank you.
We also went over the collection and development policy. And we made some changes to that. All of these were minor changes. I was gonna say, where are we?
On the
I believe that
disposal policy.
included, change to the policy actually included the request for reconsideration, just some minor changes in terms of cosmetics with the new logo, but we didn't change that form at all.
Right.
And that goes along with this kind of a procedural document to the policy. We're to discuss the disposal policy, which is the next one.
In the disposal policy, we made a small change. To say that it will be in accordance with the 75 ILCS 5/416 as far as disposal, and we made a disposal of real and personal property. Then we did number 2, that there be no favoritism to any board members or library staff. And there really wasn't any changes to that paragraph. Actually, we didn't make any other real changes to the disposal policy.
The previous disposal policy did not allow us to distribute former materials into the community. So we did remove a line about preferential treatment or nothing that we set aside was previously in the policy. So we have been setting aside boxes of books for other organizations in the community. And so rather than violating our policy, we're changing the policy to allow that.
And that was all on that disposal policy. Are there any questions? Hello. Can I get a motion?
I would motion to approve the revised disposal policy effective date 1/19/2022 for the Waukegan Public Library.
I will second that.
By Larry and seconded by Kathy.
Deborah,
Deborah,
yes.
to accept the changes to the disposal policy. Can I get a call?
Yeah, Kathy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Jean,
Yes.
Rob,
Aye.
and I for myself. It passes.
Okay. Then we looked at the Ray Bradbury collection. What was the proper term of what this document is? It was a proposal that was made that had never been completed prior to the pandemic. And in here, there were some things that were said. Did everybody get a chance to read it? Well, one of the things that we discussed was the fact that it said a committee would be the one that would be bringing information to the board and a recommendation on what should be done with the Bradbury collection. And it was suggested that we complete this process. Since this had already been brought up, made up, and was just in the process before we went out on pandemic, to go ahead and follow this process and finish it.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Please.
there hadn't been a committee formed when this policy was created back in 2020. We jumped right into a pandemic. And so, like I said, like Jean said, the governance committee suggested that we actually form a committee or eliminate that from the policy altogether. There was also sale of items in the previous policy, and this, what we had discussed with the Historical Society and the Parks back in February of 2021, was that we would consider the loan, but that wasn't even allowed for the policy. So we did make a change to allow for sale or loan of items. So we added the word loan to this policy, if that's the will of the board.
I don't know if this would be appropriate, but would it be ideal if we move this decision to after we have the completion of the discussion of the Ray Bradbury collection, the next section?
I don't have a problem with that.
From my perspective, that makes sense. And if we're to go ahead and make a motion to approve this, if you might be amending it with respect to whether the committee is in there. And I know the governance committee in reviewing this, we talked about, you have, the board itself has choices to accept the amendment or do a motion to amend it further. So I think the other discussion might be best to precede vote on the policy itself.
Well, that ends my report.
So Carl, do we need an official motion to move that decision to later, or is it okay if it just happens later?
I think that as president of the board, you can just say, we'll come back to that one. We'll move on to the next item.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was doing the legal thing. So we will come back to that item. Then next up is that next item, the Ray Bradbury collection. So finishing that discussion, would anyone like to start?
Well, like before, I'm going to step out of this conversation because of my conflict of interest.
Thank you, Brian.
Rob, I
Yes.
went through the Library Act today, and if you don't mind, I can go through some of the general authority that the library board has with respect to this issue, so that you kind of have the framework of what you can and cannot do here. And I want to emphasize, this is a policy decision. I have no personal preference whatsoever. What do you do with this collection? I just want to make sure that the process that you go through and the decisions that the board makes are in conformance with the law. And so I just want to go through a few sections out of the Library Act. The first one is section 1-6 regarding donations and bequests to the library. The title is held in the Board of Trustees. It specifically states as a special trustee with respect to the donated property. So there's action in the will from Ray Bradbury that the personal collection would be transferred to the Waukegan Public Library. So that's the title it is in now. You have the possession of it, and your role is, the Board of Trustees generally has fiduciary responsibilities to do what is in the best interest of the library and your constituents. This section of the Library District Act says, with respect to the donations and bequests, there's a special trustee relationship that you are supposed to abide by the directions of and wishes of the donor. Within section 4-7 of the Act, it goes to different powers of the Board of Trustees specifically. There are two different sections with respect to the sale of and disposition of property, whether real or personal, that the Board of Trustees has to deem is no longer necessary or useful for library purposes. So in order to dispose of property, whether it's by sale, donation, you need to determine that the property itself is no longer necessary or useful for library purposes. Moving on, section 4-12 is very relevant. It says, if a historical society or other civic body organized for promotion of historical education maintains a historical museum and library, I think that's applicable, within the library's territory, the Library Board of Trustees may participate in the maintenance of the historical museum and library upon mutually agreed upon terms between the board of the Historical Society and the Library Board. I'm not sure exactly what is meant by maintenance. Does that mean having one, or does that mean maintaining the physical facility? I think it's probably the broader construction, but that is something that we could debate. I'd rather not right now, going through the points. And then the second section on the Library Act with respect to the sale or donation of property is the one that was added to the policy that you approved just a little bit ago, 4-16. And it again requires that if the board determines to sell or otherwise dispose of real or personal property, you have to deem that it is no longer necessary or useful for library purposes. So both sections regarding the sale or disposition of property has that same provision. And so you would have to make that finding in any motion, resolution, whichever way you go, to transfer, dispose, sell, loan the property out. Waukegan, by the way, has the right of first refusal to any property that you might sell to meet the purchase price that whoever was trying to buy it. The Waukegan City Council can make a decision that it wants to purchase it for that same price. So that's an interesting provision in your Library Act. Personal property of any value may be donated or sold to any tax-supported library or the Illinois library system. The Historical Society is, I don't believe, a tax-supported library. So you can't just sell it or donate it however you want. And now comes a confusing part. I know it's probably confusing already, but there's two different sections based upon the value of the property. If it's under $1,000, you can just put it on display at your library facility, say, here's what we want to sell this to, and anybody wants to come in and buy a used book for 25 cents, they say, yeah, I want that, and you can go. If it's over $1,000 and up to $2,500, there's another process. It's very simple. If it is greater than or equal to $2,500, you have to publish notice of the availability and the location of the property in 2 successive weeks, at least once per week, in a newspaper, in a local newspaper. You have to spell out what the date of the sale is, the selling price if you determine it in advance, or that it'll go to the highest bidder. It doesn't say anything other than sale here. You know, so I'm not sure exactly where this ends up. Originally, it's my understanding the Park District, Historical Society, and the previous board for the library was looking at a long-term loan. So you have authority to enter into an intergovernmental agreement and certainly do a loan or maybe even the donation. But I have concern that the Historical Society, you probably cannot just transfer it to them, to it, because it is not a tax-supported library. So what, you know, there's some other issues, and I responded to the trustees of the Ray Bradbury different trusts and the letter from the trustee and 2 of his daughters to say, look, the library board has important issues to look at. One of the things in that letter, if you'll recall, was a suggestion that you have a right of first refusal, that if it were to be donated or to Historical Society in the Park District, that if they no longer use it, it would have to come back to you first to decide whether you wanted it before it could go anywhere else. And they also had a secondary source or place to put it, and that's the Indiana University that has a good chunk of its research collection. We would need to make sure you cover those types of things. Any transfer, because it was a donation to you with a will, I think you should also have provisions in there with respect to whether any part of that collection can be transferred by whoever you have either loaned it to, donated to, or sold it to, without first coming back to the library for permission. You know, so those are some of the things that we need to address regardless of how you go about it. So I know it's long discussion here, but I wanted to kind of point out the legal aspects of this and then let you guys obviously decide the policy. Policy of the library has a committee to be established to make a recommendation back to the board with respect to the sale or donation of the property. The proposed amendment includes sale, loan, or donation. since you currently have a policy that establishes a committee, if you do not wish to do that, you need to amend that policy. You need to follow your own policies, I guess is what I'm trying to say very clearly. And so you have the authority to amend that policy, eliminate the committee, and do it as a board of trustees, or you create the committee with or without the recommended amendment to the policy, and you wait for a recommendation from the committee. So I'll stop and take any questions that you might have before you engage in your other discussion.
Well, so Carl, let me see here. Can you hear me, Carl?
I can.
Very good, Carl. Thank you. Well, I have some questions. First of all, my first question is that in the draft, the deed of transfer draft that the Waukegan Historical Society had sent to us as trustees, item A, it reads the deed of transfer addendums in the event the Waukegan Historical Society would cease to exist, or if the society determined to no longer to be able to maintain ownership of the Ray Bradbury collection, the collection will be first offered to the Waukegan Public Library for the first right of refusal, followed by the Center for Ray Bradbury Studies at Indiana University. So you went over that, but I don't understand exactly what this right of first refusal is. So God forbid if the Historical Society should cease to exist in some future point in time or lose interest in this collection or whatever, which is highly unlikely, but in the event it might happen, because we cannot foresee the future, what is a right of first refusal? I understand it sounds like it would come back to us before it could go anywhere else, but if it provided that it would come back to us, which that would be what that provision would be, would we have to buy it back? Would we have to buy it back, or would we just get it back without any purchase price?
On the terms of the agreement, if it's just a donation going to them, I would certainly expect it would just be a transfer back without any compensation. And I'm also concerned about a portion, not just all of the collection. What if the library wants to display some of the collection that the Historical Society is not currently displaying? There's a lot to this collection. There's a ton of boxes in storage. And I read through the appraisal and looking at all the items that are there. What if the Historical Society says, oh, well, we're only going to use 10% of this for the museum display? What if you as a library want to use some of it yourselves? We need to address those issues if that's important to you.
Well, Carl, if I may ask, and I'll just to follow up with that, that was one of my concerns too. For instance, I believe somewhere in the library now, we had one of the typewriters, if not the typewriter that Ray Bradbury composed or wrote a lot of his work. And so it's in a display case. And so if this were to all go to the Historic Society, for instance, let's say we wanted to have a Ray Bradbury month or a Ray Bradbury week or something at our public library. And it would be nice to have some of these items to show the public that we had, Ray Bradbury had these items, and we're the library. With all due respect, they're not a library. We're a library. The Historic Society is not a library. We're the library. It could very well be, if we don't have some statement, and probably they would give it back to us or loan it back, but they wouldn't have to. And so our future boards wouldn't have to of the Historic Society. So that concerns me a lot. And then now my impression of this law, this Illinois law you just went over, puts a whole new wrinkle on all this. And so I heard you say that in your commentary and reading all this, Carl, that we would have to deem it the collection not necessary or useful. Well, I wouldn't be able to say wouldn't it be necessary or useful, because it would be necessary And it would be useful to have, and probably necessary too, to be able to show the public, as our library, to show those who have never seen it before or want to know more about Bradbury. It would be very useful and very necessary to have some of those items and some of those books just displayed in our library for the public to see, again, we're the library, and with all due respect, they're not. And the final word I would have to say at this point in my discussion on this is that, let me think where I'm trying to go with this. Well, those are the main points there. That again, there was one more point, but it's skipped my mind for now. So we'll leave it at that for now. But thank you for your looking into that law. It's very important. Thank you.
And Larry, one thing you just mentioned, the concern for wanting to have the right to display part of the collection at the library if you wanted to. If I recall, in reading through the draft intergovernmental agreement for the loan of the collection, it had provisions along those lines that the library could ask for and receive back part of it for its own purposes. So at least at some point in the past, when I didn't have anything to do with it, when working on an agreement for the loan, that was one of the provisions that was addressed.
Carl, Larry brought up an important point about the deeming it, sorry, I forgot the words, no longer necessary or useful for the library. Maybe this could be for John as well, but is there examples of past precedents of how we've determined things are no longer, or do we just say we don't think it's useful and there's not like a criteria that we are meeting? Yes, John? You're muted. No.
In the example that Josh Bill made reference to, that the EPA collection was a lot of papers that were all digitized by the US EPA. And so we were going to recycle them because they had sat in disrepair and no one had used them for a number of years. So we were going to dispose of them when we offered them to the Citizens Advisory Group and Susie Schreiber to save them. They didn't want us to throw them away because they didn't want to lose the possibility that there wasn't a paper backup of the digitized version. So we gave them to them in multiple boxes, and they came and picked them up. So past precedent, sort of, but it was because no one was using them. They were all in disrepair and had been sitting in a storage room. No one had been using the documents for years.
Policy that you have on deselection and weeding out your collection, once you go through that process, then the board is asked to designate what you're going to sell or donate as no longer necessary or useful for the library purposes.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions?
Carl, this is Deborah. I have a question, or well, actually a request. That first section that you read, I think it was 1-6.
Yes.
Could you go over that real quick again for me so I can make sure that I got all of that? Sorry about that.
No problem. What I did is I wrote out on paper my abbreviated version of it. So I just grabbed I printed off the Library Act so that I could actually tell you what it specifically states. Persons desiring to make donations of money, property, or real estate for the benefit of any library may vest the title to the donation in the Board of Trustees receiving the donation to be held and controlled by the trustees when accepted according to the terms of the deed, gift, devise, or bequest. The Board of Trustees shall be held and considered to be a special trustee of such donated property. And I don't know why that's in there, because you're a trustee for, with respect to everything, that's your title. But it says, a special trustee. So to me, that is an indication that you need to make sure that any property that is donated to you, if it has, expression of direction on how it's to be used or held, you need to comply with that. And one of the, it was donated to the library. And if I remember correctly, if you don't use it, then it's supposed to go to the Indiana University.
Supposed to go where? I didn't hear that last part, what you said.
It's my recollection that the will provision transferring the property to the library had a provision that if you were to not want it or want to dispose of it, it would go to the Indiana University. It's John just put up here PUI, and I forget what the total. There it is. Indianapolis Center for Ray Bradbury Studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
If I may jump in again.
Can we let Nathan go
Sure.
first and then you
Oh,
go?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
So Carl, I had two questions. So the first is, what would be, or this first one is easier, I guess. So the fact that, it's no longer useful, would the fact that we've received it back in 2014 and
Nathan, you muted yourself after you said 2014.
yeah, would that be an argument in favor of that? In favor of that finding, the fact that it's been in boxes for that long? And then the other, I guess the other question is, I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer. So hearing you read all those statutes, would you be able to kind of say, like, these are my points of concern with us signing the document tonight? Does that make sense?
Yeah, first of all, if you as a board want to agree to, loan, donate, sell to the Historical Society, the collection, I want you to make a motion to that effect, subject to, working out the terms of that, going over some of the issues I said before about the library having the right, and, as Larry mentioned, to utilize part of it from time to time as you want, that if it's, it's got to address whether the Historical Society would have any authority to sell part of the collection, to give it away without coming back to the library and getting permission to do that. And, you may not even do that. You might want to indicate that they can't do any of that. And the only thing they could do if they wanted to dispose of it would be come back to the library or go to the Indiana University Ray Bradbury Study Center. So, so just the terms of how it would go if you're going to donate it or if you're going to loan it. The other part is, you could sell it if you as a board don't want to deal with the collection. I don't know if thing, but that's up to you. That's not been asked to be sold. If you're going to sell it, you got to go through the notice process and the publication and either a price or to the highest bidder. So that's a concern. I don't believe the Historical Society is a library supported by tax dollars. There are some joint programs where the Park District maintains property and stuff like that, but I don't think the Park District levies taxes for the library. I don't think it has the authority to do so. I could be wrong on that, but that would have to be determined before I would, as your counsel say, you're free to do it. So that's a concern I have, and I don't have a definitive answer on it. I want to make sure that there's proof that the society is a tax-supported library. I'm guessing it is not, but I don't know that for sure. So that's an issue that I have some concern over, Nathan. You could certainly, as a board, find any property is not necessary for your use. And, the other part of that is not useful for you. And that's a judgment call. Anything in your collection, you could determine, or any of your real property, you could determine that it's, at this point, it's not useful for us. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a use. It could be in a library. If you've got used books, you've got multiple copies of the same volume, and you want to, get rid of 2 or 3 and only have 2 or 3 left, you have the right to do so. And that, it's no longer useful or necessary that we have, 5 copies or 6 copies of that. So those are the policy and judgment decisions that you make with respect to anything in your collection or any real property that you own.
Can I ask?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that.
Jean,
Yeah, I have a question. I need a clarification, I guess. If we deem it not useful or unnecessary, then we could do that. But didn't you say that if we decided that we didn't want it for whatever reason, it had to go to the University of Indiana?
It's my recollection, I'm going to have to pull up the trust documents to be certain of that. The actual language that Ray Bradbury used in his will. So I will try to do that right now. I remember those trust documents are.
But that's what I'm hearing. Am I wrong? If we decide that if it's not useful or necessary, we couldn't give it to just anybody else. We'd have to give it, basically, we'd have to give it to Indiana.
I don't know if that was just a recommendation or a requirement. Okay, so off the top of my head, I don't remember. John might know. He's dealt with this a little longer than I have, but
I'm not 100% certain.
I didn't print that off, but let me see if I can find it.
But nowhere in the documentation from the will or anything like that required us to give it to IU before we disposed of it. I mean, it was our collection to do with as we pleased. I'm pretty sure that we didn't have to consider IUPUI first.
And I think it was just in the letter from the trust and the 2 daughters saying that, the preference would be if you agreed to either loan or sell it or donate it to a historical society, that if they no longer wanted to use it, it would come back to the library first and secondarily to Indiana. That might be the only place that was. So let me look.
And sorry, I don't want to take up too much time or take time away from others if they have questions. But I did have in terms of Larry, your point about the collaboration on future programs to highlight Ray Bradbury in the deed of transfer, there's that section C underneath there that talks about that will collaborate on future programs and events that highlight the Ray Bradbury collection. And then point E talks about not breaking it up or not selling it. So my understanding of it then would be that it would, if they decide, hey, we don't want it anymore, or hey, we got a whole new cool library, then it would come back to the library. Is that right, Carl? Or is that kind of or is that kind of up in the air or vague at this point?
I think there's probably some additional wordsmithing that would need to be done. And, before we just say, yes, we accept their document, and the terms of it are 100% okay, without really looking at it. And I did find the amended trust. It's one sentence. All the rest of the surviving spouse's library of books and manuscripts shall be distributed to the Waukegan Public Library in Waukegan, Illinois. That's it. So there's no further direction, no expression of intent. It's just to the library.
Thank you, Carl.
So could
I
I
know,
jump
Larry,
back? Yeah,
yep.
thank you. So, right, Nathan, just to my understanding of the deed of transfer addendum, item C, it says that the Historical Society Library, Public Library will collaborate on future programs and events, but it doesn't specify items. I mean, they could hang a banner up there, and we could hang a banner up there, and they could. But I mean, I'm interested in actual items. Books that he signed off on, or the typewriter. I mean, it doesn't specify that. So I think, like Carl said, there's some more wordsmithing that needs to be done. But just two quick follow-ups. First of all, as I understand the Carnegie, again, I'm just saying what I understand, but the building down there that they're rehabbing, it's not as though that whole building, as I understand, it's not as though that whole building is going to be filled with Ray Bradbury material. I understand one room is going to be, not the whole place, one room. So again, I'm just saying what I understand. So it's not as though if they, again, I'm not saying this wouldn't happen, but if they didn't get it, it's not like the whole place is going to sit there empty. They're going to have other exhibits from other parts of Waukegan history there too. And I think, Carl, I have to say, I think you made a good point in that, well, if they have one room to display it in, and so it's a rather large room, but it's not the whole place. So again, why would you have to have the entire collection and own it to display it in just one room of a multi-room building that has a first floor, a second floor, and a basement? There's 3 different levels in that building. So that's something to be mindful of. And the other thing, Carl, as you explained, the Illinois law, we have to be mindful about how to proceed with the Illinois law and statute. You said that, it sounded like what you said is that if a collection exceeds $2,500 in value, then there's no mention of donation, there's mention of sale, or you said it becomes debatable, it becomes sort of unclear. Am I right on that interpretation from what you said?
Yeah, the Illinois General Assembly throughout the Illinois compiled statutes have provisions that are inartfully drafted. This is one of them, because it begins with, if you determine to sell or otherwise dispose of real or personal property that you deem that is deemed no longer necessary or useful for library purposes, it can be sold or disposed of at a public sale. So I suppose you could say, the price, say we're determining the price is 0 if it goes to a historical society, and that it's a $1.5 million if it goes someplace else. There's ways around it, but it's questionable that you can just do it to the Historical Society if it's not a library that is funded by tax dollars. Ways of getting it in the possession of the Historical Society and protect your rights and the collection itself. It's just not exactly how the Historical Society would prefer it go. But if this board has a preference that we transfer the full title, or you, not we, transfer the full title of the collection to the Historical Society, we'll find a way to make that work.
But we would still have to find, as I understand from how the law reads, we would have to find it not necessary and not useful, which again, I, as a trustee, couldn't say that it wouldn't be necessary or useful because, again, we're the library and we're going to have, interest in just talking about Ray Bradbury too, and not just putting a banner up. We're going to collection like the typewriter or some books you wrote or something. So how could I sit here and say, well, that's not going to be useful to us and it's not going to be necessary to us? I can't say that according to the way the law reads. I'm the way the law reads. I don't know how I could say it's not useful and not necessary.
And, Larry, when I said we could find a way to do it, I think we would do a resolution making a finding that the board has determined that by transferring the title to the Historical Society, that is preserving the collection in its entirety based on how we would do the agreement, and that therefore it's no longer necessary or useful for the library itself to maintain the collection because it's going to be preserved through the Historical Society. As I'm just thinking about it out loud tonight, that's why I said there's ways that we could make it work. But it's up to you individually as trustees to say, yeah, I agree with that. It is perfectly acceptable to have nothing to do with this and transfer it over. And therefore it's no longer necessary or useful for us to do it because we've given that role and responsibility over to the Historical Society. And, that's a policy decision. And if you are comfortable doing that, you'd vote in favor of it. If you're not, as trustees, you'd say no.
Thank you, Carl. Did anybody else have anything else they had questions of for Carl or things they want to share? Yes, Kathy?
I think it was Carl that mentioned before about the wishes of the donor. And we haven't talked about that at all. From the letters we received and the letter that Ray Bradbury wrote back in 2007, it seemed like he was he would be very happy to have the collection at the Carnegie. Does that figure in legally into any decisions that we make?
It's something you can consider. It is not in the terms of the actual transfer, though. It just says, as I mentioned, the one sentence, it's going to the Waukegan Public Library. In several years before that bequest in a will, he did say, he has these fond memories of Waukegan. It would be fantastic if his collection could be in the Carnegie Library. That was important to him growing up, and love for books and writing. So you can certainly consider that in your decision making, but that doesn't mean that you have to sell it or donate it. You can have the same thing happen through a loan where you still control, whether you're loaning all or a portion of the collection, and you can make joint decisions with the Historical Society as to who is going to do what with it. I don't care. I'm not personally invested in this, and as the lawyer, I don't want to feel or you to believe in any way that I'm trying to influence you individually or collectively. It's not my role, and if it's coming across that way, I don't intend to do it that way. I just highlight some legal impediments to just doing what the Historical Society has asked you to do. And there's ways to take care of this and share that wonderful collection.
So my understanding on what you just said was originally he had said that sharing it with Carnegie or putting it in Carnegie would have been nice. But in the end, he just said, give it to the library.
The original letter says, I am considering donating a part of my collection, my personal property, I forget exactly the wording of it, to the library, and it'd be wonderful to have it displayed in the Carnegie, something along those lines. But it was, I'm just thinking about maybe I will do this with my property, after I die. And then he later specifically made the donation, but the Carnegie Library wasn't in the picture at that point. And it's only been in the last few years anyway, that the possibility of that facility being brought back up to, conditions that it could actually be used for such a purpose has come into fruition. So at the time that he made the donation through his will and trust, that wasn't in the cards. It now is. And so, it's up to you to decide whether that's the right thing to do, whether you want to establish a committee to really look at this and then come back with a recommendation. Those are your options, and I'll do whatever you want.
I mean, we're just going back and forth over this. We're not really saying anything. And I'm going to say again, I don't like being forced to do something quick. It makes me uncomfortable. We're already the bad sheep in the library world. We need to look like we know what we're doing, and like we took some pains and tried to figure out the best way to make this happen or not happen, and why we didn't do it.
Could I make a comment?
A quick comment, yeah.
I'm all for the Carnegie having the collection to display. I'm concerned about total ownership of everything, with them having ultimate say over everything, except for if it folds over there or whatever, then it comes back to us as a first refusal. To me, it just seems as though this is sort of a demand for ownership, a demand that they're coming saying, we demand that you give it to us. And it almost, forgive me for saying this, but it feels just at the gut level, it kind of feels like a hostile takeover here. I mean, we want it, we're entitled to it, and we're going to get it. And I understand the Bradbury family, I understand all this, but again, there's some big questions here. Again, it's not clear that we would be able to display items from that collection in our library in the future. And there's some more things to iron out here before I can just be prepared to just say, let's just give it over to them. And I think this committee is a good idea to look at all this further and to give, and as Jean said, to give this some more reflection and to spend a little more time. I mean, this thing is sat around for it's not sat around. It's been displayed in parcels already in our library, but it's been going on since what, 2012? John, has it been going on since 2012? So I mean, another month or so to get it right, seems reasonable.
Larry, what I'm hearing from you is that we need to have a motion of what we're deciding to do right now. Does anyone have a motion as what to do?
Well, I would move to have this further reviewed in the setting of a committee as discussed in the earlier document that we haven't fully reviewed yet, but to have a committee formed to look at this further and to make recommendations back to us regarding how to go forward with the request from the Historical Society regarding the Ray Bradbury collection.
Okay, so if I can just confirm, you're making a motion to form the Ray Bradbury committee to make a decision on the future of the Ray Bradbury collection?
To review various options and to bring it back to the board for us to further review and discuss.
Okay.
Right. Well, we have final
Right.
approval, not that committee. We do.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I know I phrased that
yeah.
wrong.
Right.
If
Yes,
I
Carl.
ask, if that is the motion, or the intent of the motion, as you stated before, Larry,
Yes.
it would then, maybe perhaps do a motion to approve the recommended amendment to the Ray Bradbury collection policy. Okay, that keeps as you have a committee, you establish committee, and you put in the word loan and a couple other changes to that policy. And so if the board were to approve that policy as recommended to be amended, that does mean you go through the committee process. And if you want to have that motion and see if the majority of the board support it, that's one way to get towards a decision here.
I see. So Carl, you're suggesting that that the motion I amend to do what again? Say exactly what again?
Well, I think it's saying the same thing, but just that you would make a motion to approve the Ray Bradbury collection policy amendments as recommended.
But I would want the board to have final approval versus just the committee.
No, that's in that policy.
Oh, okay.
Committee
It's
makes
in there, yeah.
recommendation back to the board.
I see. All right, then I guess I amend my motion to go along with the amended to go along with the amended policy as stated in the amended policy. Carl, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recommended amended policy regarding the Ray Bradbury collection.
The recommended amended policy of the Ray Bradbury collection.
Thank you.
To have a committee to look at this further and bring back their thinking to the board for final review, discussion, and review.
Thank you, Larry. Do we
Thank
have a
you.
second?
I'll second it. This
Okay,
is
second.
Deborah.
So Larry and then Deborah. Okay, I'll do the roll call. Nathan?
No.
Okay, Kathy? Sorry, Kathy, I didn't hear you.
No.
No. Gerardo?
Nay.
Jean?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Rebecca?
No.
Okay, and I for me. So that's a tie. So that means we just stay.
Point of order, does that not include Brian as abstention because he's abstaining from decisions? Is that Carl question?
So we only have 8 that are going to be voting on this. So the motion does not pass. And so somebody can make another motion and see if it gets a majority vote.
I would make, okay. And Carl, you can correct me if there's language here that is not correct, but I would make a motion that we proceed with giving or donating the collection to the Historical Society with wordsmithing in terms of some of the things that we have talked about this evening, in terms of making sure that it would come back to us without any charge for the library if the Historical Society decided it no longer needed it, and also that there would be cooperation in the loaning of items to the library for display in Ray Bradbury Yeah, we're in honoring Ray Bradbury. Is that convoluted enough for you?
As long as the board members understand it, essentially it's to be proceeding with the donation to the Historical Society with the terms to be finalized, protecting, certain rights of reverter and use. The short.
Right. Yes. I make that motion.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Rebecca. So first by Nathan and second by Rebecca Solano. Okay, Nathan, as a roll call.
Yeah, aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Gerardo.
Aye.
Jean.
No.
Larry.
No.
Deborah.
No.
Rebecca.
Aye.
Myself. No. Which again ties, if I'm counting correctly.
Or
so yeah.
Obviously it's a difficult decision on what's best to do. I think what I'm hearing is, whether it's a donation or, that you as a board just say, let's do that process now with certain protections built in. Right now we don't have majority to support that. We don't have a majority just to go back and create the committee. So do you want to amend the Ray Bradbury collection policy to eliminate the committee? And then it just stays that it's a board decision and you're going to have to work out what that is. And it may be that decide if there's some additional information that you need, whether it's from me, whether it's from Jonathan, maybe from the Historical Society, to better make a decision. And we can, instead of having a committee, it's still just the Board of Trustees doing it. And I do have a question as to, I don't know Brian's relationship here and why he's recusing himself from it, and whether it's a true conflict of interest that precludes him from voting. If it's not, then he's got the right to vote on this issue. If there's a conflict or appearance of impropriety that he does not, and I just don't know personally what it is. So whether we want to discuss that in a public session or Brian and I could talk after the meeting, we could do that. One other thing, you have the authority to go into closed session to talk about the sale and disposition of personal or real property. So you could, as a board, go into closed session. We've got to do that for a couple other issues tonight. You could certainly go into closed session and have a private conversation where you put maybe a little bit more out on the table than what you would do during an open session discussion. Rob, another option is, it doesn't pass either way, and we'll come back and revisit it at a later meeting.
Okay. For the discussion about Brian, I don't know if he can unrecuse himself or discuss that then, or so I don't know how we would work that. So I guess he'd talk later.
Yeah, to me, it would make sense for him to have that conversation directly with me, and then we could, I can give the entire board a recommendation on that.
Okay.
I also, oh, sorry.
Go on.
wanted to say that I do like the idea of talking about this in closed session. Maybe then we can, like you're suggesting, get to the bottom of it. I think we've had a lot of discussions and this has been moved, pushed back another month and another month and another month. So while it's kind of fresh on everybody's mind, I do like your suggestion on that. So I don't know if I'd have to make a motion or we just go into closed session for all those other things all at once, or.
You can certainly table this, go through the other items on your agenda, go into closed session, and then after closed session, if you deem it appropriate after that discussion to come back and revisit this and have a motion with respect to it, we can do that.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to table it, or
At
is that under
this point, I wouldn't, because it's still on the agenda and it's still possible that you'll come back to it tonight. So
Okay.
you just say, we'll come back to this after closed session.
Okay, we will come back. We will come back to this after closed session. The next thing on the agenda is trustee comments. I don't know if we should push that to after closed session. I don't know. Seems kind of interesting to do them in the middle.
Makes sense, yeah. Postpone.
Okay, yeah. So we will postpone those till after. So now we have closed executive session.
But I have a point of order here. We decided that we would discuss the Bradbury collection first, and the matter about the board, the preceding board policy of the Bradbury collection, and the committee to review all that. We said, well, we'll look at this part of it first. So of course we have our executive meeting, our executive session, but then Carl, I'm just asking, don't we still have to deal with or well, I guess we could table that too until the next meeting, whatever, but we still have that floating around, right? Because we said we'll talk about this first and the Bradbury committee afterwards. So
both of those agenda items are still available to be dealt with post closed session. Okay. And there's different things that might happen with them. They might you might amend the policy, you might amend the policy to get rid of the committee, and then have a decision on whether to how to go about transferring it if that's what your desire is.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to enter closed session?
For the purposes of, we've got 2C1, which includes the personnel exceptions, including selection of an attorney. We have 2C2 with respect to matters pertaining to collective bargaining. And 2C, I think it's 6, with respect to the sale or disposition of property. Anything else, John? Okay, those 3?
No, sir, that's correct.
So we just need a motion to that effect. 2C1, 2C2, and 2C6, I believe.
I move that we go into closed session for 2C1, 2C2, and 2C6.
I'll second.
I was muted, so you couldn't hear me either. So Nathan.
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Gerardo.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Larry.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Deborah.
Aye.
Rebecca.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay. we're now entering closed executive session to discuss 2C1, 2C2, 2C6.
I have to create a breakout room. This is my first go at it, so hopefully everyone will move into a breakout room in 5 seconds. just a moment for everybody to come back. We are back live on YouTube.
Okay, so wait. Yep, that's so we are calling the meeting back in session at 9:45 p.m. Do we need a roll call on that as well?
As far as who's present, yes.
Okay, so tell me if you're present. Rebecca,
Yes.
Jean, Brian,
Yep.
Kathy,
Yes.
Nathan, Gerardo,
Yes. Present.
Deborah,
Present.
Larry. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
here on voice. I'm trying to get the visual back.
Oh, you're fine. And I am present as well. Awesome. So, do we have a motion to make a decision about the policy regarding the Ray Bradbury collection?
How about this? Based upon discussion in closed session, somebody can make a motion to approve the amendment to the Ray Bradbury committee policy as recommended.
I so move.
Any second?
I second it.
Awesome. So we got Larry and Deborah. Okay. Gonna roll call. So stay unmuted so you're ready. Rebecca,
Yes.
Jean, Brian,
Abstain.
Kathy,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Larry,
I
myself, I. So moved. And now we have the committee, or no, the comments. That's the word that starts with COMM. I will go in the same order as before. If you have any comments you would like to make, I assume, Carl, this is when I could say that during my comment, right?
The process you're going to be following, sure.
Yeah, okay. So, Rebecca?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Jean?
No comments.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes.
Kathy?
I have no comments.
Nathan?
No comments.
Gerardo?
I'll pass.
Deborah?
No comments.
Larry?
no comment.
Okay. And myself, as discussed in the closed executive session, we will be following the policy guidelines and appointing all members to the Ray Bradbury committee and holding a special meeting within the next couple weeks to advise the board on a decision. Anything else I forgot in that statement? No.
I would add, just to make sure anybody that might be listening understands that the library board will be inviting
Okay, yeah, and
legal counsel to give some a memorandum with respect to the legal issues
right.
In advance of that meeting, and hopefully we'll have representatives of the Historical Society and the Park District present, along with the administration, to give information to the board, and from that you'll be able to make a decision as to the transfer of the property or the collection.
Yes, citing the legal things. Yeah, all of that. I apologize. I know you guys know what I'm saying. Do we have a motion to end the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Thank you. That's the word. It's late.
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay. I still have to do roll call, right? Since it's online. Everybody stay unmuted. Rebecca,
Yes, I.
Jean,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Gerardo,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
myself, I, and I guess good. It's gonna be weird to say, but good night, board. The meeting will adjourn at 9:50 p.m. Hope you bring your sleeping bags next time.
Should have had that second cup of coffee, man.
You know, I'm not using it now.
Yeah.
Brian, before you exit, do you have my phone number?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I will text it to you. I will share it.
And can you just give me a call in the next couple of days?
Sure.
And that way I get a better handle on this, because you may certainly be eligible to vote. But I just want to make sure I understand before I give you a legal opinion. Okay, sir?
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you,
night.
everyone. You're all
Good night,
troopers.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.